care about the social fabric. You either are somebody who believes there should be a separate sovereign nation and that OHA should administer the starting of that nation as it is by administering the Native Hawaiian Royal Commission, or you believe that that's harmful to Hawaii, even if the Supreme Court ultimately strikes it down. You may believe fostering the development of a nation within a nation based on a blood litmus test that excludes 85% of the population is harmful to the social fabric. You may believe that. That could be a reason for wanting to vote in this OHA election for candidates who will work toward unity rather than disunity. So that's my basic introduction. I'm open to questions, love to chat with you on any aspect of this, and I'll be glad to insert as well, if you're interested to know where I stand as a political candidate and my reason for running. But may I open up to any of your questions? I'd be very eager to know, yes. And you could ask me questions also if you like, because I love to teach too, even if I'm not being paid in this classroom to teach. I'm a philosopher at heart and would love to talk with you about the Fifth Estate and so forth. But anyway, go ahead.
So when you're running for OHA for the trustees, are you running for the Oahu trustee or
Good question. I am running for one of the at-large seats.
How many are the at-large seats?
There are about 4 trustees out of the 9 that are for the entire state. And the other 5 are for each island. Oahu, Maui, Hawaii, Lanai, and so forth. Now, they don't all come up for election at the same time, so the board would not be vacated. Right now, this election, there are 3 islands doing their elections, and there's 1 spot for a statewide, or what we call at-large trustee, statewide at-large trustee. I am running for the statewide position, and I have 5 competitors. So there are 6 of us, which include the incumbent, Ms. Haunani Apoliona, who has been there for 16 years, and myself and 4 others. The most famous of which would be Walter Riddy, who's a former trustee, who's known for his early activism in the Hawaiian movement and protection of Kaho'olawe. The second most well-known is Cal Lee, who's not been involved in political issues, but was a UH coach and St. Louis coach, and so has a very significant level of name recognition. Thank you. Other questions? Please, okay. Please, absolutely.
What are your viewpoints on the, because as a OHA trustee, you'd be kind of somewhat giving input on where the, like, ceded lands?
Yes.
So what is your viewpoint on the Kamehameha schools leasing them to Monsanto for the testing?
Okay. Well, I have a very strong position with regard to Kamehameha schools. I think, first and foremost, we need to treat Kamehameha schools as a private entity. Again, you have, in this case, different from OHA and the ceded lands. You're not dealing with public lands. You're not dealing with lands that belong to the state. You're dealing with an individual's private lands, an individual who left those lands through trust law in her will to the ones to whom she chose. Therefore, the public doesn't have the same level of authority. And the reason for this is my deep belief in the protection of private property. And I believe that's a constitutional belief. I believe that that's a belief that makes America great. This is not held, and I don't mean this critically as I speak of China. There's less strength in the protection of property for private individuals or corporations in China. In the United States, it has generally been inviolable. So I support that. Therefore, I want to be cautious before telling Kamehameha schools what it can and cannot do. But there's a separate issue. When you talk about Monsanto, you're talking about chemicals. You're talking about issues that range from genetically modified agriculture to pharmaceuticals, the whole range. You're talking about a public value, and you can't just have individual entities do their own thing with negative impact upon the public value. This is something you report on as journalists, something to which we mobilize people to take action. So there must be a place at which we look at these things. I would want to add just one more factor, and journalists need to play a very big role in this. GMO is a buzzword. GMO is a hot topic. GMO, you just say, if I'm running for office, I'm anti-GMO, then you've got the down-to-earth crowd. I mean, you know, it's just basically it. Nobody sits there and thinks, well, I'm going to go to a forum at Honolulu Community College, and I don't know how to answer they want us to give 6 questions to which we give yes or no, and they print them out. And one of the questions is, do you believe in Hawaiian sovereignty, yes or no? Well, how do you define the word sovereignty? If you mean a separate political nation from the United States, no. If you mean self-determinism, autonomy, building my own life, yes. So one of the questions is, do you support GMOs or not? Okay, what? No, I don't think penicillin is a good thing when people I don't, there's just no room in the middle. You see, with the GMO issue, we have to understand something. The Hawaiians had 45 varieties of hybrid taro before Captain Cook arrived here. And that was genetic modification over time. Same thing with the hybriding of dogs. It's just that they didn't do it at the micro level, they did it at the macro level, and they produced genetic transition via evolution. So we have genetic modification as part of what humankind does. So it's a complex issue. We really have to understand that what we're dealing with here is science with or without values for the public good. So the science itself is not the evil. The evil is the values that are at play in government and corporate governance, if that makes sense. So we have to target the right thing. Now, to make a short answer to your long question, I don't think OHA or the state should have a hand in telling Kamehameha what it does with its private land from its private princess. But I do believe OHA needs to play a role in creating the public space. OHA trustees, the 9 trustees, need to be punished when they become political and need to be told by trust law they are fiduciary trustees first and foremost, and they need to get out of their conflicts of interest. They need to govern the trust as trustees. Trustees are not supposed to be politicians. Trustees are supposed to fulfill stewardship of the trust. And therefore, OHA has the unique opportunity to do something. This is part of my platform. I call it Naleo, the voices, democracy. OHA is to create a table at which we bring together the Hawaiians and the non-Hawaiians, the military and the civilian, the developers and the environmentalists, the pro-technology and the anti-GMO. Bring them to the table and create a process by which concerns are worked out. This was not done before H3. H3 was supposed to be a 3 to 5 year long project. Do you know H3, the freeway which goes through the Ko'olau? The first engineer hired, graduate of the University of Hawaii, who also retired from the project, and he'd only worked on that one project. It took 30 to 40 years, 30 years to complete the major work of H3, because every other week, it seemed, they were discovering Hawaiian bones. And they had to stop, court injunctions, everything. Similar kinds of things were taking place. They had never come together beforehand and said, developers, Hawaiians, environmentalists, others, what happens if we do discover Hawaiian bones? Well, we'll follow this protocol. Do you know Kawaihao Church down across the street from the City Hall? The pastor's a good friend of mine. He's ready to quit because he's Hawaiian and the church is Hawaiian, and the Hawaiians who are the Hawaiians who are opposed to the handling of bones in the cemetery are keeping them from going forward in their Sunday school building. They can't keep building their Sunday school building because there are bones, because it was a cemetery. These kinds of problems should not surface after we start the rail, after we start the H3. There should be some place where they are dealt with by bringing stakeholders together And there is a Hawaiian practice called ho'oponopono. Usually people think of ho'oponopono as after the fact of apology. But the actual grammar of the word, ho'o, to make, is a forward proactive moving verb to make a process by which we iron out our differences. So I feel that that's what I would do as OHA. OHA, I would make sure that Kamehameha schools, along with the sovereignty activists, along with other stakeholders, are brought to a table voluntarily, but we would promote it, so that issues are dealt with in advance. And this is where philosophers come in. Philosophers come in because we don't have anything solid with which to deal. We just do thought experiments all day. We sit around and we think, well, what if, what if, what if? And that's what needs to take place through the statespeople, the statesmen, stateswomen of OHA. Thanks for the question. Yes? Other questions?
Oh, I have a follow-up kind
Please.
of. Well, the particular issue I was talking about in that situation was there's a couple different places, but particularly where I live in Haleiwa, there's a big plot of land where they basically just spray pesticides,
Yes.
you know, on GMO corn to see how the land can withhold. And then there's some, obviously not proven direct correlation, but a correlation with people in the area getting sick from the debris of the pesticides. So doesn't that become a public affair issue?
Absolutely. And guess what? We have the laws with which to deal with that. And this is extremely important to understand that a good number of these issues require the use of laws that are in place, require the holding of the Environmental Protection Agency accountable, holding of the state's Environmental Protection Agency accountable. And this is where journalists can help by getting people to be involved. You'd be incredibly amazed at how much good law exists in our country. What do legislators do during their session time? They make laws. And most of these laws can be applied. The problem with celebrated issues is that there's a tendency to want to create new laws and to promote a position and so forth when existing laws are there. I do believe the environmental laws exist, but I do, however, also believe that we don't hold our government sufficiently accountable, and we allow special interests to weigh in to conflicts of interest for our leaders. But we have the mechanisms with which to deal with conflicts of interest, special interest, and so forth. And journalists who promote causes, which is an increasingly significant occupation in the modern world, journalists who are watchdogs can play a significant role in mobilizing the public.